I'm here with Matt Chang, founder of Chang Robotics and co-founder of the Chang Robotics Fund. Today, we're going to talk a lot about the reshoring of U.S. manufacturing jobs, the intelligent automation aspects of the movement, and also a little bit about his book that he recently wrote.
Yeah,
so, Matt,
let's get into it. Yeah, thanks, Forrest.
So there is a massive movement of reshoring activity of U.S. manufacturing jobs. And I would love to get your view and also your vision on what that looks like, and also what role can Chang Robotics play in that?
Yeah, I think, so when we look at reshoring, it really started during COVID when we had supply chain crises.
Definitely.
You can kind of go back in time. It might be painful. And you can remember we couldn't get toilet paper, then you couldn't get baby food.
Right.
And it just rippled through. For manufacturers, if you're making automobiles or airplanes, I mean, it was much more severe,
right,
because you can't ship an airplane unless you have every single piece assembled into the aircraft. So these supply chain weaknesses that got exposed during COVID, I think stayed in everybody's mind. They just spent 2 or 3 years fighting it. Immediately after that, we had kind of unrelenting inflation and prices were going up. Of course, we know it because prices went up at the gas pump. They went up at the grocery store. So we felt it as families.
That's right.
But companies felt it far worse. They were seeing things like 600 times appreciation on certain categories. So all of that collectively has led to this understanding of re-industrializing in America, that we have to make things here so that we have them nearby when we need them. The global economy works great for certain things, but for critical everyday items, we need to make it here. And I think the final change that really drove it home was the tariff policy. Right. So once foreign nations got, monetarily punished for overly shipping things into our country, American companies that relied on those imports started to think, we've really got to make that here. Right.
That's right.
And so when you add it all up, we have the tail end of 2025. That's the modern reshoring movement. Everything in the industry moves like a pendulum, right? And so we went to this lean, just-in-time, globalist supply chain. That was one extreme. And I think what you see now is that pendulum is just swinging back.
You mentioned supply chain. Obviously, that's a critical inflection point in America's economy. Where do you see some gaps, and where do you see the state of America's manufacturing jobs next year? I know that's fast-paced, but it seems like things are picking up. The companies are rallying to the call, and Chang Robotics is one of them. Talk to me a little bit about supply chains.
Yeah, so supply chain is changing. It's all about inventory,
right?
Which is maybe not a fun word, but if you own a grocery store, you think a lot about inventory. So it's where do we have things, where do we keep them, and how fast does it take to manufacture more to replenish them? Right. That's kind of the whole supply chain in a nutshell. We know that our ports are very close to tapped out. We saw that when we had ships queued outside of ports. Right. We also know that they're very vulnerable to labor. We had a longshoreman strike not too long ago that disabled a bunch of ports. And we had catastrophes like the Francis Scott Key Bridge in Baltimore coming down in the harbor.
Tragic. Yeah.
Shutting down one of the largest ports on the eastern seaboard. So I think from a supply chain perspective, we're still sorting out where the inventory needs to be held. How local do the warehouses need to be to the manufacturing? Once you have produced the goods, how local does that need to be to the stores or the automotive plants, whatever it might be? So that's kind of the first part, is identifying where goods should be within the supply chain. The second part is now who's going to handle and produce it. So we're talking about bringing back this scale of industry.
Yes.
It's effectively doubling the U.S. manufacturing sector. I don't think we're going to double the workers. And I think that's where we come in together to add a lot of value.
Yes.
So the workforce is changing. This is something I've been writing a lot about all year online. You have a very large number of foreign workers going home. Yep. It's already into the millions. And it's going to continue on. By my estimates, it'll be 4 or 5 times more than what's happened to date with people going back to their original countries. So as that happens, a lot of that workforce is wrapped up in the supply chain.
That's right.
Driving forklifts, packing boxes, working in factories. That labor has to be replaced. Then we're doubling the size of the manufacturing sector on top of that. There's not going to be a workforce for it. So The solution is clearly highly automated facilities.
So in steps intelligent automation, in steps industrial AI. There's some pros and cons to this.
Right.
There's some moral challenges to this as well. What does this mean for U.S. companies, U.S. manufacturers as they deal with this rapid evolution of intelligent automation and industrial AI?
Yeah, I think what I'd say is focus on the use case. Whenever we get into these big abstract questions about robotics and AI and kind of the future of technology, I would say bring it back to the use case. What are we actually trying to do here? If we're in a warehouse, we're trying to move pallets with a forklift. That's the use case, right? So let's get very granular. Is there a robotic solution that can manage
100%.
this warehouse for me so that I don't have to pay forklift drivers on a 24/7, 365? Let's take those same workers and elevate them and upskill them to manage a robotic workforce, because we have to make more product with less people is kind of the net result. Another use case, if I'm operating a manufacturing or production line or something, a complex machine like a CNC mill,
Right.
is that something that can be systematized with robotics so that fewer operators can oversee more machines? And we know the answer is yes. That's what
100%.
we wake up and solve every day. So that's the automation answer, is focus on the use case, focus on the worker, and look to level up that worker into a higher skill position. When we zoom over to the AI application, I think it's all about safety. For a lot of people, they think of privacy is their first concern with AI.
Yeah.
It's like my data, confidential things like a HIPAA record in a hospital,
Sure.
or a inventory manifest in shipping. But I think if we just start by thinking about safety, that's the first place. There's AI that runs all by itself. That's probably the one we should be concerned about. There's AI with what they call human on the loop, which is a human oversees a bunch of AI processes,
Right.
but the human is ultimately responsible. And then there's AI with human in the loop. I think all companies right now should be looking for use cases where they can get AI with a human in the loop, managing that warehouse, managing that manufacturing schedule. Those are great industrial applications of AI that companies can start to bite off right now and keep that human in the loop until they're absolutely certain on safety and quality.
Makes perfect sense. Let's transition over to the Chang Robotics Fund. We are in approximately our 9th month of operation, which is fantastic. And we've made 8 investments so far. Talk to us about the most recent investment with REA. Why are you excited about this company?
Yeah, so just to recap for the audience, Chang Robotics Fund is a manufacturing tech venture capital company.
Yep.
The most recent investment we made was REA Resources, based out of Connecticut. What this company does is they have solved a chemistry dilemma that's been around for years of what to do with all the accumulated fat, oil, and grease at a wastewater treatment plant. The industry, if you're a civil engineer, you call that fog, fats, oils, and grease. The challenge with it is the grease clogs the wastewater treatment plants just like it clogs our arteries. So it becomes a major point when you're collecting all the wastewater from all the restaurants and the hotels and the households into one location. This becomes a problem. The second issue is after they clean it out, when they're done clogging
What do you
up
do with
the
it?
plant, the disposal is really messy. This is fatty substance that's been in the waterway, and it's accumulated a lot of pollutants into it.
Sure.
And the most common way to deal with it today is to incinerate it. So in almost every city in America, they collect all this waste oil, they take it to an incinerator, and they burn it, which releases those pollutants into the atmosphere. What REA is able to do is they're able to process this waste oil and convert it to biodiesel.
Nice.
Using advanced chemistry. So that's why we love this company, is it solves an air pollution issue, it solves a CO2 emission issue, and then it takes what is considered a waste stream for every city, very expensive, hard to manage waste stream, and it converts it into a revenue stream because they actually make fuel in the cities now.
Yeah, and it's an unquantifiable contaminant that we can't even put a budget on. So municipalities are struggling with this all across the country.
Yeah, I'm gonna venture to say that most cities are mildly in compliance or not in compliance with EPA air emission standards. This is one of those environmental issues that's kind of slipped through the cracks.
Right.
And it's so widespread, it's hard to address because until now, there wasn't a technology that could help cities figure this out. So with REA and their kind of groundbreaking chemistry science, we've run the numbers for a few cities. We actually have an entire city that's running off of this already. So it's past pilot phase. The economics are compelling.
Right.
You know, it's on the scale that if any major city does this, it replaces their annual parks budget. So they can go from taxing people to pay for parks to suddenly they have a revenue producing stream by selling biodiesel that pays for the entire park service of a city. So it's pretty significant.
Sounds like it. Let's talk a little bit about Chang Robotics. It's been a great year. Looking forward to 2026. We've got some bold ambitions. What can you share with us about Chang Robotics going into 2026 and what we're trying to accomplish from a strategy perspective?
Yeah, 2026 is going to be a really fun year, really aggressive year for us. I'll tell you why we're going to do what we're going to do is I don't really have nightmares anymore. But the one that I do will wake me up at night is that the manufacturing wave is coming back to America and we're not going to catch the wave. As you know, I'm a surfer. So that analogy makes perfect sense to me. When you see the wave setting up, you got to be in the right position. Sometimes you got to hustle to get over there to be in the right spot to catch that wave. That's where we want to be. We want to be the leaders in America for this manufacturing renaissance that's coming our way. To do that, we have to scale up. So what you can expect to see from us is some aggressive scaling. It starts with talent. You know, we're in a very high expertise industry. We design and install robotic systems for a living. So we're going to be aggressively growing the team with talent. We're also going to be scaling up on the financial side. We want to offer more compelling financial solutions to our customers.
Right.
You probably didn't pay for your house in cash. Most people don't pay for their car in all cash. So we're going to be working with the financial industry to make sure our customers have solutions to pay for this stuff. As it makes them money, they can pay for it over time, right? Because we don't want anyone to miss the wave and get left behind. So those are kind of the big moves that we're going to be making.
Okay.
I think this year we did a great job of solidifying all the right technology partnerships. So when it comes to having choice of the best technology in the world for robotics and IoT and compute and sensing, we have those partnerships already. And so we're going to be bringing these major suppliers with us as we scale.
Awesome. And great answer. As you look at that future, I know that you're highly anticipatory of it. Who are some of the clients that could benefit from this? What industries, or if you have names, what are some sectors that you think can benefit the most from this given Chang's position?
Right. Well, you know how our business works.
Right.
If somebody is a customer of mine, I can't tell you
Right.
because we've signed NDAs, and we actually safeguard and steward a lot of their sensitive information. So we want to treat that with respect. But in terms of industries, I would say, the U.S., to get the trade imbalance back to where it should be, to where it is balanced, we've got to be an exporting nation. So we're going to first look to those companies that are major export companies. The aviation sector. America is the leader in producing aviation around the world. We want to enhance that. We want to make our aviation manufacturers more agile, better cost structures, so they're more globally competitive. We would solve that with robotics. The next would be automotive.
Okay.
Automotive is such an important part of our economy, and there's so many between the OEMs and the tier 1 and tier 2. It's a huge jobs factor and GDP factor in the country. So we want to support the industries like automotive and the adjacent industries. And then finally, I think is the stuff from the store, right? Anything in what we call the CPG category. The reason for that is inflation has not gone away.
Right.
You have kids, I have kids.
Still there.
We feel the pain every single time we get to a restaurant or if we go to a retail store, grocery store. So we really want to put robotics to work in the CPG sector because it's anti-inflationary.
Right.
It's going to help manufacturers get control of how much raw materials they consume so they have no waste. And then it's also going to help bring pricing down and make the supply chain faster. So I think if you look at those three sectors, those are a great place to start.
Perfect. Congratulations on the book you just wrote.
Yeah, thanks.
So Risk Taking is Biblical. It's on Amazon and other bookstores around. Talk to us a little bit about that. I believe it's an Amazon bestseller. Is that right?
Yep, that's right.
Fantastic.
Yeah, we did. Thank you. So 2 weeks ago, we did a launch. We had some excellent PR and communications people helping us, and so we pushed it, and we got to Amazon #1 bestseller, which I didn't think was possible. I thought, hey, getting a book on Amazon would be really cool, but we overachieved, so we got it on there, and then we also got to #1. It's available on Barnes and Nobles, and then we'll be producing the Audible very soon, so you can get it in recorded format.
Very cool.
So we're excited for what this does. The whole point of the book, Risk Taking is Biblical, is to teach the would-be risk taker what the Bible has to say. So if you're a Christian and you've got a big idea, and maybe you're overanalyzing, maybe you're stuck in fear, maybe you just don't know where to start, the point of this book is to give you a very clear roadmap of how to get through the initial process of figuring out what risk you want to take, and then ultimately the step-by-step guide of how to do it. It's packed with a lot of wisdom. What I did was I took 10 mentors of mine and people that made a big influence on my own career, and I interviewed them and put their case studies into the book. So you get the benefit of kind of my best of the best. 10 mentors are included in there. And then it's been laid out in a way that it's from step 1 to 2. It's a 12-chapter book, so you can imagine there's 12 steps. And if you follow those steps, I think you're going to be very happy with your life's work. For some of your listeners here, and they're already advanced, they've already got some ideas, they may pick the book up in chapter 6 or 7, right? Okay. Not everybody has to start at step 1. A lot of people are past that.
Okay. And is there anything that you can share from your career that this book kind of manifested from? Is there a particular point in your decision making where biblical scripture came home and you were able to say, you know what, these are my values?
Yeah, in the book I filled it with that. I've got crazy things like litigation, and how to seek after Jesus through litigation, which might not make sense. Trust me, you only learn that one the hard way.
I imagine.
I've got how to handle things like sudden career change. I go into pretty good detail in there about when I got fired from my last job, and I was just shell-shocked. I thought that was my forever home. And it was a big lesson for me that company actually didn't care about me. I was a number on a spreadsheet, and a bunch of lines from that spreadsheet got deleted in one day. I was one of them. So I think these are very human stories about how to navigate conflict. And then I guess maybe I'll close with saying building relationship.
Okay.
I put a huge emphasis on mentorship. Early in somebody's journey, they need mentors.
Definitely.
There's a point when the scale starts to tip and they need to become the mentor, right? So relationship and building deep relationships with people is absolutely one of the most important parts.
And that's not going away with AI. Relationship capital is the number one. I'll close with one final question. You've written recently about leadership, trust, and how you've walked away from a couple of deals that weren't a good fit for you or your team or your values. What advice do you have for founders and fund managers when being forced into a situation that they need to make a decision on and it may be inconsistent with their values?
Yeah, I mean, that's things I've been pretty open with. We've been offered millions multiple times where we didn't take it, right? Because it wasn't the right fit for us. So I think for the leader out there, it's about understanding what your values are and what your principles are. Every leader should get to the point where they can write those down. Every leader should get to the point where as they grow their team, they can communicate those values to others and build a culture. Where you have strong values and where you have strong culture, you're going to be far less susceptible to making just a quick decision to make a quick buck, right? And that's something that I think God has blessed us, that we have had the discipline not to chase money, instead to chase our vision. And I think what he's rewarding us with is substantial because we've stayed obedient to his calling.
Amen. Well, thank you, Matthew. Good to see you again. And we look forward to seeing you all back here next time.